Yeah. Het ging van Junkie XL naar Junkie in herstel.
Welkom in de Junkie in Herstel podcast.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. Well, you're making a lot of podcasts yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. It's a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. It's one thing to hop on and just talk. Yeah. It's another thing to organize guests and work around their schedules, and then they cancel, or like how we just had for a quick moment, you got a technical issue, or whatever it is. It's everybody's got their own stuff that they're busy with. So to juggle everything and to make it all happen and fall into place, and then actually record a good episode, it takes a lot to make it happen.
I know.
But when it does, oh man, it's my favorite thing that I do. Of everything I get to do that I'm fortunate enough to do, It's far and away my favorite.
Yes, and the podcast has the same title as your book.
Yeah. Which I don't know. When you talk to my wife and my manager and different people around me, there were different feelings on that. And basically, what I said to everybody is, "Hey, if you can come up with something better, something that you think fits my podcast or my book better, I'm all ears." Mm-hmm. And no one came up with anything. So
that's good.
Well, I loved, if I'm being honest, because first of all, as an alcoholic in active addiction, I lied about everything.
Yeah. And
so one of the biggest things for me to learn and to put into action was being honest. Mm-hmm. So I hold on to that. But then my wife also pointed out to me that on my shows as a judge a lot, I'll start comments by saying, "Well, if I'm being honest." And I said, "Oh man, you're right." so that's how that fell into place.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like I wrote down a few things. Like I was curious if you could tell us about how you started just having one drink, and then it evolved into more and more.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for me, it was never just one drink. Day one, when I was like, 14 years old or something like that. The first time I drank until I blacked out. Mm-hmm. And that was always the way I wanted to drink. It never made any sense to me why someone would have a drink or even two drinks. Mm-hmm. If I wanted a drink for the taste, I was going to drink a Coca-Cola or something like that. The whole reason of drinking beer or wine or vodka or whatever was to get that feeling in my head, mm-hmm. and then to eventually pass out. That's what I wanted. There was no progression as far as that for me. I went 100 miles per hour the first time out.
Yeah.
The progression for me was more about how often I drank.
Yeah.
It's like it started in high school, just drinking on weekends. And then, getting into college, adding a couple days a week. And, by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was drinking 5-6 days a week. Mm. And once I was in my 30s, I drank every day.
Yeah.
And then, in my early 30s, it became not waiting until the night to drink. Then it was, okay, can we organize lunches that everyone's okay with drinking? And, any excuse I could get to drink earlier in the day. And then when the pandemic hit, it was how early can I drink in the day, and it wasn't long before I was drinking at 7:00 in the morning, until the end of the night. So that was the progression for me, was how often mm-hmm. I would drink.
And it would probably influence your behavior as well, as in, I was always working to find time or space, to get people off my track, and I can do my own thing. And I would be so secretive about it. Always hidden agendas. And I was scheming 24/7,
That's the amazing thing about when you get sober is there's all this time. It's like, there's so many hours in the day, you know, and you recognize that because of what you just said. You spent so much time and energy scheming about what else you could do and what you could get away with and where you could go and how you could get that next drink. And I spent so many hours of every day focused on that one, I didn't have time for other things that were way more important, like my family, like work. But also it was exhausting. I was so tired emotionally every day because my mind was going 1,000 miles per hour from the moment I woke up, thinking about how can I get my next drink? How can I hide it from people? What did I lie about? What do I have to cover up? You know, it's like, it's this whole other life that you're living by yourself in your head.
Yeah. With my friend, sort of. Huh?
My best friend.
My best friend. Yeah. And my biggest enemy at the same time.
Yeah.
My worst enemy. Yeah. Yeah, no, because I was reading the book and I can just sense I can just feel my own loneliness again, you know, and the whole struggle. But also, you know, if I could make it happen somehow in a very twisted, sick way, I would be, you know, like, you know, like, yeah. I'd be so proud of myself as well. Yeah.
It was a game, you know, of what you could get away with. And when you would get away with it, I mean, when I would, you know, like I always use this example, like that I did the Men's Health the cover of Men's Health.
Yeah.
Right? The way I patted myself on the back of thinking, I fooled everybody. Right? And I really did. It's like, look what I just pulled off.
Yeah.
You know, and I would do that in small ways every single day of, I just drank there and nobody found out. Or like I still checked off my to-do list all day long, but still managed to drink and feel good all day long. Like all those little things, but then also the big things of work, of shows, of movies, of the Men's Health cover. All of those things were like the big wins, you know. It was like, look what I just did, and nobody knew, you know. And
were there like moments that people actually, you know, was like onto you, that you can feel like, oh, they're you know, they're catching on to me, and like, you know, they can see through my smile, you know?
Yeah, so that haunted me every day, right? That was like part of my anxiety that I dealt with every day, was wondering who could tell.
Yeah.
Right. So like if I was filming an episode of Holland's Got Talent, I would be sitting there in my chair wondering, you know, can the director, because he's looking at all the cameras, can he see it? Can he see it on my face? Can he see it in my eyes?
Yeah.
You know, Chantal Janssen, who's sitting right next to me, can she smell it?
Yes.
Can she see it? Can the audience member that's right there? Like, I mean, so instead of sitting there, imagine like the good fortune, the privilege I have of that being my job, that I get to sit in that chair and be entertained. And I took all of the fun out of that for myself. I took all of the joy out of it, because all I was thinking about was, who can tell that I drank last night?
Yeah.
So it's like, so I missed out on being there,
in the moment,
being in the moment, loving that.
But did you like?
I was tortured by my thoughts.
Did you like use like breath mints or like, you know, what did you do to cover up?
Yeah, I mean, so it started the moment I was waking up, right? It's like, so I would go to the gym and work out like a madman to try to sweat it all out of me.
Yeah.
Depending on where I was, like if I was in a nice hotel and they had a sauna or a steam room, I'd go in there after I worked out, you know, and then I would shower right before I went to the show, and I'd put on my cologne, and you better believe I had breath mints with me. And I did everything I could possibly do. You know, the eye drops multiple times a day, just anything and everything. I mean, I was so locked into my wife's beauty products, all of her face masks and things to get rid of the bags under my eyes. I tried everything. But you can't get rid of is that glazed look in your eyes.
Yeah.
And no matter how much better I would make my skin look, or the bags in my eyes go away, or whatever it was I could do, when I really looked at myself, I could see that glaze in my eyes.
Yeah.
And I hated it. To me, it was just this dead look in my eyes. But that's also what I wondered about. All right, I did all this other stuff to cover up, but who's really looking at me right now?
Yeah. Were you avoiding people's eye contact?
I avoided eye contact. I avoided actual physical contact. I avoided everything. And anytime I had to have a conversation with somebody, I cut that thing as short as I could. Just let me get to the point here so I can get the hell out of here. God forbid they start asking me personal questions, or something like that, because I couldn't handle it. No. So I avoided people in general.
Yeah. And at some point, like, you hit rock bottom. What was the moment that you thought? There must have been moments that you were like, maybe I have a problem. And then you're like, tomorrow or whatever, you know what I mean? And but at some point you couldn't deny it anymore. Like, I think if I'm correct, your wife told you, like, listen, I'm leaving, or she already left. And then you were like, it hit you and you were like, okay, I need to change now.
Yeah. There were multiple instances. I mean, the worst one was when my son got sick, and I talk about this in the book too, but when my son was 9 months old and went into the hospital, and we didn't know what was wrong with him. And it was very likely that he was dying. And I convinced my wife that she needed to stay with him every night in the hospital instead of me, so that I could go home and drink. That was the first time I took a long, hard look at myself and said, wow, like, what are you doing? Yeah. What is this? Because I couldn't believe, even in the moment, I couldn't believe I was doing that. Yeah. I still did it. It didn't stop me from doing it because I wanted to go home and drink that bad. Yeah. But I started to question, like, what kind of control does this have over you, that you're choosing to drink instead of being with your son on what could be his last night? Yeah. Unfortunately, I drank for 6 more years after that. Wow. Multiple times of my wife threatening to leave, saying we can't live like this as a couple, as a family. But I never took it seriously. I always said, all right, I'll quit for a week, a month, whatever it's going to take to get her off my back.
Yes, to prove that you can do it, eh?
Yeah. And I'm just like, everything was about, I'll show her, because I looked at it as, how dare you question me? Look at everything I'm doing. Yeah. And she didn't care about everything I was doing. She cared about how I was behaving. Yeah. And that I wasn't there for her or for the kids emotionally. Yeah. But I couldn't see that. But it ultimately came, if you're looking for like that actual rock bottom, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And, I had been going all day, every day for a long time. Yeah. I was a shell of myself. I did not look like myself anymore. I couldn't get out of bed. Like? Oh man. I mean, my face was this big. My neck was big, like everything. My whole body was swollen, was bloodshot. My eyes were bloodshot. My skin was red. And I had this dead look in my eyes. I was done. And one morning when I couldn't get out of bed, my daughter, who was 9 at the time, walked in and took a look at me with fear, real fear in her eyes, thinking that I might be dying. Yeah. And asked me what was wrong. And that was that final moment that finally broke me and made me say, dude, you got to do something about this. It's like I had done it to myself and I had done it to my wife And for some reason I was okay with that.
Yeah.
But I finally said, I can't do this to my kids as well. So that was when I finally asked for help.
Yeah. And what happened? Like, did you know someone that went to rehab before, or like, how did you find the right place to go?
No, I walked into, my wife was staying in the guest room at the time because she couldn't stand the sight or smell of me.
Yeah.
So she wasn't even staying in the room with me. So I walked down the hall into the guest room and just looked at her and I was like, I can't figure this thing out. I need help.
Yeah.
And she got on the phone immediately, I think with a couple of friends of ours who possibly had a family member who had been through something similar.
Oh, yeah.
But then also just started calling different places in our general area. And within 40 hours, she found a place because we did talk about it. And I said, I don't want to go to some 5-star resort.
Oh, you don't?
No, because I knew I would walk out of there. I knew I wouldn't take it seriously, right? It would be another. I suffered so much from the entitlement complex of, look at me, look at everything I have. If you put me back in like a glorified hotel where I was getting room service and swimming in a pool and whatever, I wouldn't have taken it seriously. I also didn't want to go to a shithole because I would have walked out of there pretty fast too. I think, So I just said, find a basic place that I can just focus on what I thought was going to be just quitting drinking.
Yes.
I just need to quit. I need to stop drinking. And so that's what she found. And like 40 hours later, she was driving me there to drop me off.
And when you came in and they told you, like, listen, it's not the drink, it's addiction. What happened? Like, because if you just went in for a drink, that must have short-circuited something.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. It was like, because, by the way, 5 minutes after I told her I need help, I regretted saying that and I tried to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. It was too late. I had already said it,
Yeah.
But I walked in there thinking that my life was over, right? All right, for the sake of my wife and for the sake of my kids, I'm going to stop drinking.
Yeah.
But my life, the idea of ever having fun again, that's gone.
Yeah.
That's over. And that's how I walked into rehab. They stripped me of, I didn't have much pride left at that point.
No.
But any little bit that I was still hanging on to, they took away from me pretty quick. When they ask you to strip down and, standing there naked, bend over, spread your cheeks, make sure I'm not smuggling any drugs in, anything like that. I mean,
cough a few times.
It's humiliating, but I needed that, because it made me say, man, what happened? How did you end up here? And it didn't take long though. It took me about, 2 days or so, in detox, getting my head clear for the first time in God knows how long. And walking into those meetings and listening to other people share their stories, the first time I'm ever hearing that. And all of a sudden realizing I'm not so special, there's other people just like me. After feeling so alone for so long and thinking no one could possibly understand what it's like, I realized, oh my God, all these people know what it's like. They all get it. And I loved it.
Yeah.
It was like I've said this, I feel like I found my people, and hearing their stories and connecting with them, and for the first time sharing my own shit for real, like really talking about how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking, all of that. That changed everything for me immediately.
Yeah. And did you have did the family get family counseling as well to help you when you came out of rehab, or?
Well, my kids are still, at the time they were 7 and 9. what I told them and what my wife told them was that, daddy's going to go away for a month, just, to work on getting healthy. They didn't fully grasp what I was actually doing. My wife and I started counseling while I was in there. 1 hour a week, we would have a joint Zoom session. I was sitting with my counselor and we would Zoom her in. Those were not fun because owning up to everything, and she didn't even want to hear what I had to say at that point. And that's fair because, going back to the whole, if I'm being honest, she just knew me as a liar for years. She didn't even want to hear it, so it was more at that point about, here's what we need to do when I get out of this place to try to take the first step forward together. Yeah. If we're going to try to do that. Luckily she was willing to do that at that time.
Yeah. And during your recovery, like I had the same, like I was such a bullshitter and I said sorry so many times, never for real, that people didn't believe me. And it took like effort, I had to really show them that I did what I said and I said what I did, etc. And nowadays it's good again, but it took a while because it was such a...
How long are you sober for?
I'm going towards 10 years now. Next year in March. I'm writing a book as well. So you're an inspiration as well. It was really nice to read your book. And I was like, I was in the process already, but now I have an actual writer next to me so he can help me make it into a story because I'm all over the place sometimes. There's so much to tell about addiction and the mindset and how twisted it is and how painful it is and how lonely and sad it is. Not just for the addict themselves, but also for the family, but mostly for myself. And I want to give people an insight in my mind, like how that worked. Because in Holland, like in the States, most people go to Minnesota, like a 12-step rehab facility. Over here, it's a bit different. That's why I'm making the podcast as well. Have you been to meetings in Holland?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Because I wanted to know what the difference was for you. But because in Amsterdam, you can go to heaps of meetings. They're English speaking as well. Is it on the list?
Maybe you and I can go.
I'd love to.
Because, it's not an excuse. There's just kind of a fact. Like, you can go to meetings online, right? Yeah. So when I'm traveling, I have the meetings already from back home that I just hop online and I'm at the meeting. Yeah. But admittedly, that's a bit of laziness. I should get out and explore a different meeting while I'm in Amsterdam next time.
Yeah. Well, I'll gladly come with you.
But, you talk about your 10 years and so, I'm approaching, I'm more than 2.5 now. But, when I first got out, it was all, because like you just said, bullshitter. I was a bullshitter too. I was a liar. I was just anything but honest. Right. But when I first got out, it was about proving to myself, but also proving to my wife that I wasn't going to drink. Yeah. Right. And for the first, I would say 1.5 years or so, it was all just about not drinking. Yeah. Now we've evolved past that. And it's about just life and living and all the different situations that you run into and about trying to handle all those things maturely on the up and up and be honest. And, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, be honest about them. And, we're still, in the beginning stages of that. Yeah. And she still questions me sometimes. It's like, I'll tell her something and she don't believe me. And it's so annoying. It's like, I'm being honest here. Yeah. and I have to remind myself, like, dude, you created this situation. Yeah. She doesn't believe you because you were never honest before, so it's as frustrating as it is. And I want to lose my mind sometimes because I'm like, there's nothing else I can say here. I'm being honest. Yeah. But I created that situation. And so sometimes I have to accept that she's just not going to believe me because I say so.
Yeah.
She's going to have to see over time that whatever it is I'm saying in this moment plays out, and she realizes that it is true.
Yeah.
Over the coming days or weeks or whatever it is that we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, that's so, I can relate to that so much. And I think it's great that your mindset is, like at first when I was in early recovery, I would lash out like, how can you not believe me? Blah, blah, blah. And later on I was like, well, I created this, like you said. And now I know how it feels as well, because I used to play on their emotions as well and be, very manipulative but also lying and, trying to make them feel like they're trying to make them feel insecure or whatever. So every now and then karma just comes back and I just try to accept it. Although I don't like it because I can still react like a big baby sometimes.
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I walk away stomping my feet.
Yeah.
But I
throwing a tantrum inside.
I have gotten way better. Like I accept the situation, and I'm very grateful to so many people before me. Mm-hmm. My sponsor and sober buddies and different people who have been through this, who told me all of the things that I'm running into now. They told me all of this was coming.
Yes.
So I was prepared for it. It doesn't necessarily make it easier, but I knew it was coming. And now when it's happened, I'm like, okay, this is this. Yeah. You knew this was going to happen. Yeah. You knew she wasn't going to believe you all the time. You have to be okay with that. And know that over time, she's going to realize, oh, he was telling the truth about that. Oh, he was telling the truth about that. And I just have to be patient and let things play out sometimes, for her to recognize that.
Yeah, you can't undo, like in my case, like 12 years of deceit within like a year or two. Like it took me ages and years of being loyal again, being honest, turning up, it took a while to get back on track. But now I'm going to the 10 years and it's good. It's nice to grow up. And like you said, like living life, I was afraid of living life. I was afraid of being myself. I was afraid of not pleasing someone and just saying, listen, this is my boundary. I'll just leave it there. I don't feel comfortable. I always try to make everybody happy. And I would be on the last, last on the list. And I grew up in so much drama that I was used to it. And in a twisted way, liked it or something. And now, because of recovery, I've learned to not participate in drama that much, and try to just have a boring but healthy life, Yeah.
Isn't it amazing when you live in that like sort of drama-free situation, how you feel when you wake up in the morning?
Oh man, I can be so happy when my mind's quiet and I can just walk around and I'm okay with life. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have a hidden agenda. I can look at the tree and think like, wow, that's the biggest reward.
I wake up in the morning and I'm kind of like, I got nothing I have to worry about today.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's like I feel like a kid. I always call it. It's like this childlike feeling of, okay, what do I get to do?
Yeah.
It's like I always look at my son who's 10 now, and he has the most laid back, carefree attitude. I'm like, oh man, that kid, he's got it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I actually used to watch him and envy that. Like I have a little piece of that now. I get that feeling of like waking up and just being like, okay, whatever the day brings, I'll be good.
Yes. But that's it. That was something that I dreamed of when I was a kid. There was so much struggles at home and so much stress that I was always worried about the next big thing that would, threaten my existence. And now I'm a grown up and I can just, yeah, I have to work and I'll do stuff, but it's all with quality mostly and not stressed. I'm not as, I'm de-stressing. And when I'm de-stressing, my mind gets so quiet and I can really feel and take in the world, my surroundings. And it's like you said, I can look around like amazed, like a kid. And I think I was actually walking home from going to the movie with one of my fellow recovering addicts, and we discussed this exact thing, that this is pure joy. You know, it can't get better than this. And if somebody would told me that like 10 years ago, I would laugh at them and, you know, probably tell them to piss off. But
well, isn't it amazing? I mean, and I know I'm pointing out the obvious to you. You know this. Mm-hmm. But it's, you know, we thought we needed to drink to help us with our stress and our anxiety and the problems, whether it's from your childhood or your job or whatever it was, your relationship, whatever it is you think. You thought that drinking helped you handle all of that. And all it did was make all of it worse.
Yes.
And yet you get caught in that cycle of it, of needing it, and then it makes it worse. So then you need it again, and you just go back and forth. And now it's like, it doesn't mean my life is problem free. Mm-hmm. It certainly is not. But I can handle everything.
Yeah.
I can handle everything because I'm sober, I'm clear-headed, mm-hmm. I remain calm. You know, it's like nothing is that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, but the thing is, it did help for like half a second every time.
Oh yeah.
It just, the backlash was longer and deeper and worse every time. But the you know, the, how do you say that? The promise of bringing relief was so strong, and that little bit of relief was so needed because of the, you know, anxiety that was building up when it would run out, when I would start to feel again. Yeah, it was awful. Yeah. Mm. Oh well, luckily we're free now and we can do what we like.
Yes,
sir. What's like your biggest? How do you call it? What's your biggest reward, or what's the best thing that happened because of recovery?
I mean, you know, my relationship with my kids is off the charts. I'm the dad I always thought that I would be. And that makes me so proud. And if you saw how my kids interact with me, it means the world to them too. Mm-hmm. I am far from perfect. I screw up. I yell at them sometimes and, you know, and don't parent them the proper way. But I also immediately catch myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is incredible. And I'll admit it to them. Mm-hmm. If I get mad at them for something and I realize how stupid it was to get mad at them for that, I immediately admit that to them. And I apologize to them. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, I'll try not to do that again. I'll try to be better as a dad moving forward. And that gives us this great open back and forth.
Yeah.
That we have a great relationship. And that's one piece of, kind of, to answer your question about the reward, like, that's my kids. Mm-hmm. I also have that with my wife, but as we just talked about, I have so many years of destroying that relationship that we have a ton of healing to do.
Yeah.
But we're doing it. Mm-hmm. But also my relationships with everyone, with just people, with friends, with family, with everyone. I actually have conversations with people and I tell them what I'm thinking or feeling, and I listen to them when they tell me what's going on with them. And that connection, that's the reward.
Yeah. Is
the connection I have with my kids, with my wife, with my friends, with anybody, with you right now.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have that with anyone. And now I feel like I have it with everyone that I'm surrounded by.